Hi, everybody, and we'll wait for everybody to get in here. Okay. Okay, everybody, thank you and welcome to our AMA today about Timeboost, which is a new AIP that's been proposed to the Arbitrum Forum. Ed is obviously well-known and head of research at Off-Chain Labs. Matt and Austin, if you guys want to do some quick introductions.
Hey everybody, I'm Austin, and I'm a product manager at Off-Chain Labs.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Matt. I lead our product efforts at Off-Chain Labs. Excited to be here.
Great, awesome. So to kick it right off the bat, I think Austin, if you just want to explain really quickly to the audience, what is Timeboost?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, by the way. So I guess from a high level, Timeboost is a new transaction ordering policy for Arbitrum chains. And so Timeboost really allows anybody to bid for the right to get their transactions included slightly faster than anyone else. And so importantly, user transactions still remain private until after they are executed, meaning that no one can front run or sandwich users, even if they are able to include their transactions slightly faster. And so these bids that people place for this slight advantage can be collected by the Arbitrum DAO in either ETH or ARB, depending on DAO approval.
And so given what you said, it's kind of natural people might be concerned about, well, how is this going to impact just a regular retail user? And what would you kind of say to those people who maybe have that concern?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a fair concern, as it is a big change to Arbitrum chains. But normal users should feel pretty much unaffected. There's a slight delay that some users may notice, which by default is set to 200 milliseconds. And so this 200 millisecond delay is meant to give whoever wins the right to the Timeboost Express lane a slight advantage to get their transactions included earlier. And so other than that 200 millisecond delay, users should be completely unaffected.
I don't think I would detect 200 millisecond delay. So Ed, Austin mentioned a revenue stream.
Yep.
And that, that the fees can be paid in ETH or ARB. What's going on there? Where's the income stream kind of coming from? In other words, what's really happening there?
Yeah. So if you're an ordinary user, like Austin said, you can just go on doing what you're doing. Things will work the same as they've always worked. But there are some highly specialized sort of technical users who are involved in activities like high frequency trading or certain kinds of arbitrage in markets. And so these parties currently, with Arbitrum's first come, first served sequencing, they're racing with each other to try to get their transactions in first. And they put a lot of value on being a little bit earlier than the other person and getting their transaction included, right? And so the basic idea of Timeboost is why not sell or auction off to those parties a small advantage? And the idea is, if you're one of those parties and you're constantly racing with others to get your transactions in a little bit before, so you can you can get some sort of bits of arbitrage or some sort of technical fast trading thing done, then you should be willing to pay to have that 200 millisecond head start in your race against those other people. And so rather than those parties just sort of investing a lot in trying in a sort of a technical race We want them to be able to bid against each other. And then because they value being first, they should be willing to pay for that privilege. And the beauty of this is that it takes that technical race they had to be included and channels it into an auction where the revenue goes to the DAO. So basically, those parties value a lot being first in these races. They should be willing to pay for that. And essentially, with Timeboost, the DAO is selling off, auctioning to them the right to go first, and that's where the revenue comes from because they're willing to pay.
So these are arbitrageurs who are basically making a profit.
Yeah.
And they're willing to take a slice of that profit to basically improve the likelihood that they're getting
So if you're an arbitrager, right, you might be racing against a bunch of other arbitrageurs, and sometimes you win the race, sometimes you lose the race. When you win the race, you make a bunch of money from your arbitrage trade, right? But now with Timeboost, if you can buy a head start in that race, you're going to win always or almost always in those races, and that means a lot more profit for you, right? And so you're willing to pay to get that. And so that's basically the idea. Those relatively few, very sophisticated, high-frequency traders who are racing with each other, let's get them to pay for a time advantage. And then the revenue that results from that is available for use as the DAO sees fit.
So to that point, Austin mentioned there's basically two ways that the revenue could be collected, one in ETH and one in ARB. What are the differences between those?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, the two options are basically, there are really two choices, right? One is when these parties bid in this auction, are they bidding and paying in ETH or in ARB? You'd expect them to put an equal value of ETH versus an equal value of ARB, right? Because they get the same profit from winning the auction, regardless of what they pay. And then on the other side of that, sort of in option A, where the bidding is in ETH, those ETH can go into the DAO treasury. And in option B, where they're paid in ARBs, they could go into the DAO treasury, but the DAO might also choose to have them burned.
Got it. And this will be voted upon by the community.
That's right. Those options are available for the DAO, and there's already a robust debate among the DAO that has started up about which one they prefer. But in terms of what is the mechanism of Timeboost, it could work either way. It's really just a question of what the DAO prefers.
So Matt, kind of this is all kind of in the context of the DAO governed Arbitrum chains is what we were talking about. What might this mean for Orbit chains?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think we're seeing, obviously, there's a lot of Orbit chains in development. We recently shared that there's, kind of over 50 public live and testing, and there's a lot more coming. In the beginning, I think this will be a really interesting kind of learning opportunity and experiment for Orbit chains to see kind of what arbitrage opportunities exist on their chains. We're seeing a lot of application-specific chains where there's not much trading activity. We're also seeing a few chains that are focused specifically on trading where there is going to be opportunity. So I think primarily there's two things. One benefit is just like the Arbitrum DAO chains today with the Timeboost proposal, there'll be an opportunity to kind of add a revenue stream for these chains in a way that is positive for the overall environment. But two, there'll also be kind of an interesting opportunity to experiment on how they want to collect that revenue and what they want to do. Again, there's two options that are in the current proposal for Arbitrum DAO, but this protocol is configurable, so teams can decide to collect that in whatever way they see fit.
So Orbit chains, for example, can use custom gas tokens if they want to, right? Could they choose to be paid in whatever they pick for the custom gas token?
That's right. Yeah, as long as it's kind of compatible with that formula. But yeah, ERC20.
Great. What are we kind of looking at from a technical timeline in terms of being on testnet and then eventually going out to mainnet? What's sort of roughly? I know it's software and things are always a little fuzzy, but what should we kind of what's the cocktail math look like in terms of what happens next in terms of the process?
Yeah, so I'll start with, I guess, where we are now. So the proposal's live. We've got a lot of great feedback from the community. It's been very interesting to kind of hear the different takes and answer a bunch of really good questions around the design. And so it's actually, built confidence on our end about kind of the robustness of the protocol we've designed. And so we're still obviously finalizing its implementation for production readiness. We're hoping to have that done within the month. Obviously things may come up, but that's kind of where we're aiming. From there, it's really up to the DAO. It depends on a few things, but the kind of prototypical process we've seen in the past is once the proposal kind of gets finalized and obviously the implementation is ready, there will be a snapshot vote. That'll determine kind of what the final decisions around the parameters are. Again, like how is revenue going to be collected? Any other changes that we might see between now and then. And then, we obviously want to make sure that when people are using this, they actually know how to submit transactions correctly. There's no issues with kind of RPC responses. There's no issues in latency with kind of this new system. So, there will be a testnet implementation. Exactly what that looks like, we'll see depending on kind of the proposal. But again, it's important to make sure that this works robustly with a lot of users. Won't have a lot of implications for revenue because it's testnet, but it's really important we get that right. Obviously, something that we hope to do with every design we put out. And then, again, typically after a snapshot, we'll put things on testnet, then there'll be an on-chain vote to kind of finalize this and actually queue it up for execution and upgrade. And that, depends, but can take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. So, hopefully in the fall, we'll see this.
The question is the sequencer, right?
That's right. There's a couple of things here, but I would encourage folks who have more questions to kind of look at the proposal. The important thing here is there's an auctioneer that's going to be running this. There's also some smart contract changes, so there are on-chain contracts that need to be published, and there's obviously the decision about what to do with the revenue.
Great. So Ed, to the point, I know that there's some discussions in the past about Timeboost relative to decentralized sequencers or shared sequencers. How does that work with this? Is this future compatible? What's going on there?
Yeah, I think one of the great things about Timeboost is that it is fully compatible with shared sequencing and fully compatible with decentralized sequencing. The key mechanism in Timeboost, if you think about sort of what are the technical mechanisms that are needed to make this go, there are kind of two pieces. One piece is all around this auction. How do people bid? How does the revenue get collected? And how do we make sure the revenue goes where the DAO wants it, or an Orbit chain where the chain owner wants it? That's one piece. And then the other piece is that the sequencer needs to give this 200 millisecond advantage, or default 200 millisecond advantage, to whoever was the high bidder, whoever bought the rights for that 1 minute period, right? And so the really nice thing about that is what you require from the sequencer is super simple. It needs to be able to tell apart transactions that came from the auction winner versus those that didn't. And then for the ones that didn't, it applies just this small delay. And so if you have a shared sequencer, you just do that, just like you would initially. If you have a decentralized sequencer, say a sequencer that's operated by a committee, which is where the research has been going, again, it works perfectly fine just to have each member of the committee do this. And you can make sure that you provide that Timeboost time difference guarantee robustly and in a decentralized way with a decentralized sequencer. This is one of my favorite things about Timeboost, is that it just generalizes to shared sequencing, decentralized sequencing in a really natural and clean way.
So it sounds like it's totally agnostic. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's right. When the time comes, if the DAO wants to go to shared sequencing, wants to go to decentralized sequencing, Timeboost can survive through there. And the mechanism would be essentially the same. The user experience would be the same, and revenue would presumably be the same as well.
Nice. So Austin, we had after the AIP got posted, there were some questions in the forum that we thought would be interesting to bring up here, because I think there are points where we can clarify, how things work. And one of them, somebody asked, like, well, what happens if every user wants to use the fast lane? Like, who will be the winner, right?
Yeah, definitely. And so, yeah, I encourage everyone to check out the forum. There's been some great questions asked on there, and a bunch of very tough questions too. It's great to see kind of the engagement from the community that we've received on the proposal. Specific to this question, so say if everybody wants to use the fast lane because everyone wants to get their transactions included a little bit faster. So the way the express lane works is that there is an auction with a single winner. And so the winner of this auction is determined by whoever has the highest bid during each round, and a round is 1 minute long in this proposal. And so if everybody wants to use the fast lane, then everybody would place a bid and their bid would be presumably determined by how much they value having their transactions included a little bit faster. And whoever has the highest bid and has enough balance in their account to pay that bid will be selected as the winner. And for the next minute, during the next round for that minute, they will have the control of the express lane, and they will be able to include their transactions a little bit faster.
Okay, so this is where, to me, I've actually seen people get confused, because it is not like an express lane on the freeway where everybody who pays the toll gets to use the express lane simultaneously, even up to the point where the express lane stops being fast because it's congested. This is, if you win the auction, you get to have monopoly access to the express lane, so to speak, for a window of time. Is that right?
Yeah, and if I could jump in here, if you win the auction, you control who gets to use the fast lane, right?
Oh.
If you like, you can share that with other people. If you want, you can sell it to them. If you are the auction winner, you're basically, if you think of it like a freeway express lane, you're standing there at the entrance, and you can say yes or no to basically to any transaction. That means, of course, you're going to put your own transactions in there fast. But it also means that you have the ability to put other people's transactions in there if you want, if you find it's to your advantage. And so one thing that could happen out of this is that you have someone who buys fast lane or control over the fast lane because they want to resell it to, to arbitrageurs. Now, for most ordinary users, you probably are not willing to pay a lot to be a little bit faster, 200 milliseconds faster. Like, you might not even notice that difference in user experience. But the high frequency traders, the people who really care a lot about being a little bit faster than the other person, they presumably are willing to pay, right? And if you are the auction winner, you can set up a toll booth there and charge admission, whatever it is you want to do.
Interesting. Or maybe I'm the auction winner and I'm like, oh, I changed my mind. I don't want to use it right now.
Yeah, you can give it or sell it to somebody else. The right is transferable. If you win the auction, basically that you're the king of the express lane for that 1 minute round.
So if we look forward to a little future, Timeboost, you've written about it, Ed, from a research point of view for, I don't know, a year ago now at least, or something like that. Yeah. And your thoughts have evolved on it. If you kind of speculate a little bit, like, where might you see this evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see a few things. After, if the DAO chooses to deploy Timeboost, I think after it's deployed, you'll start to see probably the parties who are doing high frequency trading now start to bid on this, and revenue, I would expect, would start to flow. But I think there's also some adjustment. I talked a minute ago about whether the people who win the auction will want to resell or set up a toll booth. I think you may see people experimenting with different options. And again, one of the nice things is, from the DAO standpoint, you're auctioning this off these rights. And if people figure out a better, faster, more lucrative way to monetize those rights, they'll bid higher in the auction. That probably means more revenue for the DAO, right? So one of the things it does is it creates a space for innovation where people can try to find better ways of sort of monetizing this time advantage, with the benefits of that flowing to the DAO. So I think you'll see that start to happen. I do think there'll be a period of adjustment in which people figure out how to do it, and they hone their bidding strategy and so on. And so I think you'll see, I would expect reasonable behavior or sort of performance of the mechanism at first, but that it will do even better over time as the high frequency traders start to adapt to it. And these people are nothing if not ruthless and analytical. So if there is a way to make more money and therefore bid higher, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, yeah, but profit's a key motivator, right? So
yeah.
Austin, if people want to learn more about Timeboost, get involved with the discussion, ask questions, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the number one place to get directly involved in the discussion is on the governance forum. So forum.arbitrum.foundation, and then you'll see it as one of the more recent ones, and maybe we can link it on this stream. But yeah, so that's the best place to get started and really not only contribute to the discussion, but also view the previous discussion around it, because there has been quite a bit already. And we'll be posting answers to a lot of the questions later today. And then outside of that, I think we're seeing a lot of discussion across social media as well. And so we're ready to engage with constructive discussion around it anywhere. So yeah,
Great.
we appreciate it.
One of the last questions I had, which it's going to go in a little bit of a different direction, and so any of you guys can answer this, was there's a security element to all of this as well, which related to sandwich attacks and things like that, and basically making it so that if nothing else, they're at least not worse. So I guess if anybody chime in about what's going on there, because I think that would be a natural concern too, because people hear high frequency trading and they think, oh, front running is going to happen and all of that kind of bad stuff, right?
Yeah, so I think this is another important advantage of Timeboost, is that the Arbitrum sequencer protects you from front running and sandwiching, and it does that by having a secret mempool. What that means is when you submit your transaction to the sequencer doesn't tell anyone else about your transaction, and it doesn't let anyone, in particular, it doesn't let anyone see your transaction and then put another transaction in front of it. That's the really bad front running situation. Current Arbitrum sequencer doesn't let that happen. And with Timeboost, the sequencer still doesn't let that happen. Somebody else might have a slightly faster path to get their transaction in, but they don't get to see your transaction and then put one in front of it. If you submit your transaction straight to the sequencer by the normal mechanism, just like you, I hope, do now, then you'll still get that protection against front running and sandwiching.
So it's not at all like things that have happened in the stock world where, let's say, order flow gets sold.
No, I mean, if you sell your order flow, then you're selling your order flow.
Yeah.
But if you submit straight to the sequencer, you'll be protected in that way, right? The sequencer is required to and trusted to not peek and not leak information about what your transaction is until your transaction is already safely locked into the sequencer's output and in a block. So, and that's going to continue. Nothing about that.
So it sounds like, from an end user point of view, security's just as good as it always was. The 200 millisecond time impact is probably not going to be noticeable. And that the end result is that it sounds like for retail users, they really probably shouldn't really notice any difference at all. And that all of the things that are going to be happening are going to be with the whales and the arbitrageurs and the people doing high frequency trading.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of the goal, right? So regular users are still protected. The transactions are still fast and cheap. A little tiny bit slower. That's the price that that's really the only price the only downside for an ordinary user. But what you get, of course, is that like you said, the whales are now put into this bidding competition, which is not only reducing sort of some of the wasteful latency optimization and spamming that they may currently be doing, but also channeling that competition into this auction, which generates revenue.
Great. Well, sounds awesome. Hey, thank you guys. I think we're at time. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And again, just to read what Austin said, everybody, if you want to learn more about it, please check it out on the forum, participate, ask your questions there. Would love to obviously have you vote as well, whether you're for it or against it. But definitely, this is a good example of something that's important to Arbitrum, but we also want the community to weigh in and decide. So that, Anna, I think we're done.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.